Welcome to In the Balance, the podcast to help you build your dream team of experts to make your financial goals a reality.
G'day, how you going? It's Phil Tarrant, co-host of In the Balance, a podcast that we co-produce with our good friends over at KHI Partners. Joining the studio, back in the studio, the man himself, Munzurul Khan. Munzurul, how are you going? You well?
Very good. Thank you very much. Thank you for having us.
I've got a lot of really good feedback around the chat we had last month around this logic or this idea of a property CFO.
Yeah.
I was surprised how many people said, wow, that actually makes a lot of sense. How come everyone talks about you need an accountant, but no one's really ever said you actually, if you're serious about building a property portfolio, you need to be thinking like a business owner, and most good businesses have a CFO.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And if I look back into my portfolio, is that Gary, who was here last time, is that Gary has been helping us for many years now, right? And I look back and I say, the level of the support that I receive in terms of that information, right? We speak about that as strategic decision making. And when you have a larger portfolio, you need to make those strategic decisions on an ongoing basis. Where is the bottom line profit? Is the portfolio increasing? How is it looking in terms of the interest rate side of it? What are the repairs and maintenance? Very often as an investor, we know it, but when we see the numbers in there, and particularly with the history, then you sort of know it even deeper. Yeah,
I thought logic was sound, and thanks everyone for sending that feedback through. And if you want to get in touch with the crew over at KHI, best place is info. Was it info?
Admin at KHI Partners.
Admin. So only accountants would call it admin.
I know we debated in day one whether hello is much better than admin, or maybe.
But it is admin. But you shouldn't view your relationship with your accountant as admin. It's a very important and considered relationship that you need to have with your accountant. But I've spoken about it at length on this podcast, and we worked a long time to actually determine the name of the podcast, In the Balance, and In the Balance being a good accounting practice will give you all the information and the insights and the views and the opinions, and in the balance you'll make a decision on the best way to proceed. And fortunately in Australia we have a very robust and rigorous accounting sector, very talented and capable people, but not all accounting practice are created the same, particularly if you're a property investor. So the main thrust of In the Balance is really around how you can be working with an accounting practice which is more aligned towards property investment as a wealth creation tool, as well as all the other stuff you're doing. But Munzurul, as you know, invest in property. I invest in property. I use KHI for the purpose of me being a better property investor. And Munzurul, fortunately, just gets to work with me. I'm doing my tax and compliance, which is certainly a job in and itself. But what I didn't understand or realise, Munzurul, that yes, you might be really, really good at accounting and the strategy around it all, but the engine, the heavy lifting of KHI and the growth of KHI is in many ways driven by your COO, who joins us in the studio. And we've got to disclose, this is actually your wife, so you're going to get it it's got to be named Purabi Khan. How you going?
I'm well. Thank you, Phil. Thank you for having me here.
Well, it's great. Well, I know you personally. I've met you many, many times, but not behind a microphone. So you actually keep Munzurul in the balance, aligned and probably charted in the right course, I would imagine.
I suppose you could say that. Yes, it's a tough one. It's a tough job.
Tough one.
But yeah, I am enjoying it, honestly. Yeah.
So it's a reasonably recent appointment to a CEO role at KHI.
Correct. I've been. I was appointed COO last year. I initially joined the group as the group general manager the year before. My background is high school teaching, so I was with the Department of Education for a long time, and then took on the corporate hat.
Is it like sometimes dealing with children at the partners at KHI? I know them all quite personally. I can ask that question.
Well, should I say this on air? I don't think so.
No. They're really, from my view of the KHI, and you probably being in the role now of COO, you'll see the personalities and the people and the culture.
Absolutely.
What KHI has done is craft a really, really solid business, which is very ambitious. And I know KHI has some pretty expansive growth plans. So no doubt people are reverting to you now to maybe do the inverted commas admin. We don't want to call it that, but
no. It's there's a lot of work that goes behind the scenes. As heading the operations team, it's always full on. Especially when you're working with Munzurul, a very high achiever. We all know this by now. So yeah, it's always full on.
You enjoy the work versus sort of coming out of the teaching sector?
I actually do. Yeah. I was a little apprehensive in the beginning, but I'm thoroughly enjoying it. Good people. It's working with great team culture and good people.
Yeah, they are really. And every single person I met at KHI, and I must have met most of your team at some point. It's a very big team now. They've all got a connected passion, which I would explain, and maybe you can probably do this better than I can, Munzurul. Yes, they're very good at their craft, irrespective of whether they're a financial planner or a technical accountant or someone that works in and around mortgage finance. But there just seems to be an X factor that you guys look for when you're attracting people around. It's got to be more than just doing the business. There's got to be a sort of connected emotive outcome from it as well.
Yeah, and as we previously have spoken, right, that our whole sort of the morale of the group and sort of the beginning of the group is contributing to your life. Now we say that every time we get a chance, we try to understand it and re-understand what does contributing to your life means. It's about that sustainability of that relationship. It's about really making an impact over a longer period of time. It's about not to look through in terms of the shorter period of time, right? It's about looking through the friendship. And I say to very, very, very often, right, that many of my best friends is that day one, they were all the strangers. They became clients, became good clients. Some became really good clients. Some became friends, and some became really, really good friends. And we love it, right? We look back and we sort of say, you know what, that's the gratitude that we take.
I imagine there's a calibration for a lot of people as they go down that pathway, that journey around wealth creation, when most people start out looking for safety and security in retirement or some optionality in retirement. But what I see from a lot of property investors, they get to a point where they start thinking a little bit more altruistic like that, like contributing to your life. So whether that's in and around your practice or supporting and servicing your clients and their ambitions around it. I know KHI is highly invested in a whole bunch of charitable exercises, some of them where we're involved in as well. Just this intersection of worlds colliding, which we'll have a chat about today. But it's important that if people have that sort of application towards more than just making money, it can typically help making the money a bit easier and more enjoyable.
Yeah, and I love it, that old saying of that it's good to be good and it's good to be of doing things in a good way, right? And when we speak about the charity is that we sort of say to ourselves over and over that charity must never, ever be a marketing tool. But at the same time, we must use charity as a communication tool. And the difference between those is that charity, they cannot have any financial motive or interest behind it, directly or indirectly, right? There's no networking, there's no creating link, there's none of those. Charity has to be absolutely from the heart. But where the communication tool is important is that it's about communicating, it's about spreading the knowledge. It can be done. We spoke about charity and we sort of say that, well, our typical sort of view is that, charity means that we contribute and we contribute financially. It doesn't need to be always financial contribution. The contribution could be through your skills. Contribution could be through your time. Contribution could be through your network. All of the soft contributions are as important as the hard contribution behind it, right? And sometimes that spreading that knowledge that, yes, these are the needs and these are the pathways, that by itself, not so much whether it inspires people, because people get inspired on their own, but it's about informing people to get inspired.
So you guys have been married for a little while. You've got some teenage kids, and I don't want to sort of pry into your personal life, but I think, Munzurul, you've been sort of very open with this community of property investors, your journey as a migrant to Australia and way back when, and now you've formed and forged a life here with Purabi and your kids and created not only a very capable and driven and successful business, but also a property portfolio which must dwarf any ideas of what you thought you could have achieved when you arrived on these shores way back then. Absolutely. So Australia's been good to you, but you've been good to Australia. It's very much the migrant story which powers this nation. And it's great to see you guys, but it must be nice for you both to be quite reflective now about, partway through this journey as Aussies now, that you've been able to create so much that you can start giving back, Purabi. Must be very satisfying.
No, absolutely. It's one of those things that that we wake up with a lot of with KHI values contributing to your life, I mean, even before KHI came into the picture, I mean, I've been married with Munzurul 25 years now, and I can vouch that this has been his values, his human individual values forever that I have known him. And obviously there was a value alignment there, and obviously being married, we're just bringing that value alive every day, and this is what keeps us going. And we practice what we preach, so we enjoy it really every day.
You know, that gratitude test that we say Purabi quite a bit, right? And I say that people do meditation and a whole bunch of things, how we keep us sort of running, moving, focus. And so, and to us, it's a simple exercise of gratitude. And the gratitude means, number one, is that we're still alive, right? And number two, we're living in this beautiful country. It's a lucky country. And when we say it's a lucky country, the people who come over from overseas, they understand that how lucky it is, right? And how much more lucky that we are in many, many, many different ways, right? So for us to have that opportunity that we're living in this country, in this lucky country, and all the beautiful things being given to us, right? The family and the friends and everything else. So that's sort of just 3 to 5 minutes of sort of gratitude exercise that, oh, good Lord, it just gives you the perspective in life.
And perspective is important. Sometimes you can lose sight of perspective when property investors, when they're up against it and all these problems are happening, or there's issues or challenges in their business, but being able to reflect and reconnect with purpose and why, it's a powerful tool. And I've seen people use that as a skill and an asset. If you're able to do that despite the challenges, that you can find someone to connect back with, and it can help you realign, reshape, recalibrate. And, you know, for most of us, as hard as it gets, it's not as hard as how a lot of other people live. And this goes back to Australia being a lucky country. You're both Bengali, so you're from Bangladesh.
Bangladesh,
Are you both from the same city, or what's the backstory? So there.
Same.
What is the backstory? Purabi?
What is the backstory?
It's a long one.
Yeah.
It's a long one. But
Same town, same city.
Same town,
Yeah.
same city.
Yeah, brilliant.
I was basically, we got introduced to the world of music. So
Okay.
his auntie was my music teacher.
Oh,
So
really?
yeah, that's
I never
where it
knew
all-
that.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
that's brilliant. Okay, great. So married 25 years.
25 years.
And I'm quite familiar with your property portfolio. So as COO of KHI Partners, not only are you the sort of, you know, the custodian of the operational engine or heartbeat of the business, just through osmosis and working with Munzurul for many years, or being married with him for many, many years, you must know property inside out as well. How involved are you in the Khan family
The
property
family office.
portfolio? Yeah.
I actually manage the family office.
Okay,
So I've been managing it for a while.
So
now.
you do everything then.
I do the back end
God.
stuff. So yeah, my job is to just keep things flowing and ensuring, you know, crisis management and things as such. So yeah, just ensuring that you know, rents are up to date and looking after the areas, everything. So really. Yeah.
So, you know how Gary sort of does the financial side of it, and Gary is the CFO on that sort of the financial role. And Purabi's role is more when we speak about the COO, is the COO role on the family office as well as the KHI Partners. So we've got a fortnightly reporting system, and Purabi sends me on a fortnightly basis when you've got a larger number of portfolio rather than sort of all the sort of time. So what Purabi does is that she gets a report from each property manager every fortnight in terms of how many days the rents are outstanding, whether any property is vacant, whether there is any level of repairs and renovation needs to be done. And that bit of the report, she collates them and sends that to me every fortnight. So my benefit is that with the time side of it is I can just look through that report within literally about 30 odd seconds, and I've got the snapshot. Or if one needs to, one can go a lot deeper. So if we take that and see that as a role, is that again, we're saying that as a business venture, the way we're saying it, carry the finance, and Purabi is purely everything on the operational side of it.
And again, it's a really good way to view property investing through the lens of you're in business. Now, you might only have one property, you might have 100 properties. It's philosophically, it's the same idea. You need to act and operate your property investment as a business and therefore make your decisions without bias or agenda other than for the best outcomes for the business at any point in time. Now, if you have a smaller portfolio, you'll be the CEO, the CFO, the COO. You'll be the cleaner, you'll be washing the dishes in the sink, all that sort of stuff. But as your portfolio grows, you'll start applying some of those tasks and some of those aspects of it to professional specialists. So we spoke about CFO. So you, Purabi, as COO of your portfolio, but I guess that's going to be able to give you a really good grounding for actually understanding the role that you play inside of KHI Partners as in an asset for supporting the partners inside of the firm to provide those services to their clients. And because that is, there's nothing
Absolutely.
you probably don't know or haven't seen inside a property portfolio.
Oh yes. Name it. It's been a whole array of different incidents, disasters, but some great experiences along the way as well. I've met lovely people, lovely agents, lovely tenants. Everybody has their own stories, so there's a lot that I've taken away on a personal ground as well, and it's taught me a lot of humility as well. So,
yeah. Is there anything about operating a property portfolio that you find tiresome or fatiguing? Because I always say there is, but
Absolutely. I mean, I'm dreading at the moment. The emails haven't started to pour in after the cyclone. So we've got quite a major portfolio in Queensland. But I do know for a fact in the next couple of days I will be probably inundated with emails for repairs and requests and whatnot. I guess the other thing sometimes that gets very, a little bit tensed for me or tiring for me rather is just very simple. When we get multiple applications for tenants, sometimes we do get tenant applications of women coming from abused background, elderlies, who may not be the front runner when it comes to meeting the finances. But there is that human aspect that how do you actually say no when you know that person doesn't really have anywhere to go back to. So making those decisions, balancing the finance aspect, the pragmatism as well as the human side, as an owner does get a bit taxing.
Yeah, it's I get the point there, and whenever I'm renting a property and you'll get recommendations from a property manager, and they'll always say, you got this person, this person, and again, back to the base of this podcast, in the balance, if you can fulfill a number of objectives through your decision making, I think that makes sense. And to your point around making housing available to people who might not necessarily on paper be the ideal tenant, when you scratch the surface and look down into it, the financial metrics around whether or not they should be able to tenant the place, it can be clear. And, women come from abusive backgrounds and similar types of scenarios. I think there's an obligation to help out where you possibly can. And if you're able to look beyond the fact that pay slips might not be, as strong as other things, but look into how income is generated through any benefits or support from governments or other bodies, like typically those applications always stack up. So I challenge everyone to challenge themselves when they're in that situation. So thanks for raising that point.
Absolutely.
You gave that example literally the other night about this beautiful property manager that we have, Amy Stamp, right? And I'm happy to say her name into the
Where's she from?
She's from Queensland, right?
Okay.
Stamp Property Management.
Okay.
Amy, lovely, beautiful lady. And you were saying that you and Amy, you have a little bit of a secret that I've just got to know.
Yeah, we kind of, it is a secret, but
Tell us the secret.
Apologies, Amy. But yeah, we both kind of tend to prioritize candidates that come from that kind of volatile background. And believe it or not, in so many of the cases when we actually prioritize those candidates, even though they were not the ideal candidates finance-wise, they actually ended up looking after the property really well. They was just so grateful, and just that attitude and the gratefulness. And they ended up being quite loyal tenants who really looked after, paid their bills, without defaulting. So somehow karma has your back.
Karma normally it normally works out.
That's right.
Properly, and again, a lot of investors may have bias for whatever reason. I'm not saying wrong or rightly, but I've found exactly the same thing. When you choose someone on paper who might not be the ideal person, you'll find because of the connectivity and the loyalty and the appreciation and the gratitude, they can be tenants for life. And going back to the point, how do you actually balance the business of property investment with the human emotive connectivity with it. You're the provider of people's shelter, and it's often overlooked, and property investors are sometimes demonized, right? But, most property investors I know, by and large, are pretty cool. And, we sort of teach our kids it's easy to be kind. It's one of the easiest things you can be is kind.
Absolutely.
So why not do it as a property investor where you can? It's good to hear. And to your point, Munzurul, around really good property managers, I only got a call literally half an hour ago from a property manager, new property manager that we've moved a rental to, saying, "Hey, going Phil, just want to let you know there's no issues with your property. There was a bit of flooding in the backyard.
Oh,
Moving forward, maybe you could do some drainage and stuff, but no real issues, no main problems. Everything is okay." And I thought, that is excellent.
That's excellent.
And if I give them the shout out, Ideal Property, they were really, really good. It's not very often.
That's excellent.
Not very often. So there are good property managers out there,
Absolutely.
isn't there?
Absolutely. It's a hard role, right? Property management is very, very difficult role, right? Because there's all those different properties, and the average property manager quite easily manages anywhere between 100 plus properties. And when you look through 100 properties and all those different sort of the challenges that you go through, so that phone call is fantastic.
Yeah, it's good to hear, and it just reminds me of the very important role and task of property managers. I caught up today with the CEO of Real Estate Institute in New South Wales, Dean Gibbon, and we're talking about housing crisis, rental crisis, affordability crisis. There's a crisis in property management, my view. We don't have enough property managers, and he said there was a 20%. We lost 20% of property managers in New South Wales at the onset of COVID, and we haven't been able to replace it. So I think a lot needs to be done in that regards. But it comes back to how do you operationally configure your business to do that. Sounds like KHI Partners in very safe hands under Purabi's custodianship or stewardship of the operational side of things. So what's the most exciting thing about KHI for you at the moment from ops side of things? No doubt you're looking at compliance and corporate governance and technology connectivity, finding the right people. It's a big, tough job. Going back to also, you've got these personalities of partners, right, who all have a voice as well. So what's exciting you most about KHI at the moment?
Absolutely. I would say it's the people, working with the people, working with the culture. It's a very safe place to be, and it's a peaceful place to be. Everybody understands everyone, and yes, of course, I'm dealing with a lot of different personalities. And being head of operations, I'm always the one, obviously, rooting for change management, and change management is never easy. It's always a challenge, and sometimes you're not the most popular person in the room. But I have been welcomed with pure joy and heart, and I'm very grateful for that.
So what's the thing that the KHI crew get most frustrated with if it's not in the office? Is it like biscuits with their tea, or is it the ping pong balls aren't the right colour, or what sort of?
Oh well,
Munzurul complaining about something, no doubt.
I guess it depends. It depends room to room. It depends people to people. But look, it's. I think the best part about it is sometimes I do wear the mom hat a bit, sometimes the teacher hat, and they receive me well. Let's put it that way. So sometimes
we're slightly scared about that mom's hat and the teacher's hat.
Being centre principal, Munzurul stuffed up again, but
that's it.
No, it's good to see, and I guess it gives an operating cadence to support growth with KHI, and Munzurul sort of shared with me the very ambitious, and you see the accelerated growth you have now, but ensuring that more Australians have access to good, solid financial advice, particularly with those who are driven towards creating wealth through property. Having the backs of a very good accountant, financial planners. We spoke to Gary around sort of the CFO role, mortgage broking, and I know there's some other aspects of your business which are sort of growing. Munzurul, which you'll share with us at a point in time. But all of these things, it's nice to build a big business, but to your point, it's about giving back. So you spend a lot of time and you emphasise a lot of your charitable work. I don't know how you find the time, Munzurul. I know Momentum Media and KHI, we both support a really good charity called So They Can, of which I think you're the chairman of. And I go to your function every single year, and we support the So They Can, which is very active in Africa. really empowering and supporting females financially and also kids through education. I think it's a great charity. What is it about that charity that sort of you get such great satisfaction out of?
Yeah, look, I mean, there's just so much statistics, right? So we go through the statistics, then we touch the heart. The statistics is that it looks after around 51 schools, 52 schools, and there's about 28,000, 33,000 kids that it sort of helps out in throughout Kenya and Tanzania. And it's all about removing poverty and removing poverty through the education. And that whole education, there is so many different elements to it, right? It's not just your academic education. It's about know-how. It's about entrepreneurship. It's about your health education side of it. It's about knowing what is your right. And sometimes those sort of a rural places that one goes there and one say, wow, good Lord. I mean, not only you don't have the right, you don't know that you don't have the right? And that's sort of how it's been for generation of generation, right? So that takes away quite a bit. You know, Phil, when I went to, and it's in Africa, right, Kenya and Tanzania, and when I went to Kenya for the first time, and I must say that I went up there with a sense of prejudice saying, all right, we traveled quite a bit. I've traveled many, many, many different countries. I've traveled to different parts in Africa, and this would be just another new country. There'd be a couple of things different, and it'd be fine. It's a new country, right? And I was being very quickly, within 24 hours, is being humbled back to a level that I haven't seen it. The things that we see in Kenya and Tanzania, the level of the poverty, it's the definition of the level of the poverty is just so much deeper. The needs are so much deeper into some of those places. And so the can goes back to the founder, and the founder is Cass and Kerry. They're the one who is the founder, and Cass in particular, right? She's the one who built it over the years. She's the one who expanded over the years. Our role as part of the board is to work together on the strategic side of it, a bit of a transient role. So we got a certain number of years, and then the new board gets created. But all credit goes back to this wonderful lady, Cass, with her perseverance, with her vision, with her stubbornness, and also with her diplomacy and you know, all of the above, and mum's hat and teacher's hat and all the rest of it that she wears, and the contribution that she makes into those places is just incredible.
Yeah, I've met Cass, and what I would say is that her energy abounds, and even though she's been involved, she was at the birth of this charity, but she's as engaged today as she ever has been. She's, you know, more driven today as she ever has been. It's this, you know, this perpetual cascading fulfillment of you start getting the runs on the board, and it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. I don't know where that will go, so they can, but it's great to see it sort of moving ahead so rapidly and supporting so many different applications in and around Africa.
You know, when I joined the Can, that was the first charity that I joined, and I shared this story quite a bit, is that day one, when I joined Cass was sort of asking Munzurul, what's your vision, what's your reason, tell us the heart, why are you joining the Can? With all the enthusiasm, I came back to Cass and I sort of say, all right, it's all about contributing. And I want to contribute, unconditional contribute. There is no such thing on the other way. It's just all about giving. That is all I want to do, just giving. She listened to me very, very patiently. And then she said, it's not going to work. And I was like, what do you mean? There's nothing that I'm asking, right? All I'm in here with just pure 100% giving. That's all I want to do. Cass says, it's not going to work. I was like, tell me why it's not going to work. And Cass says, Munzurul, no long-term relationship is a sustainable relationship unless and until it's a two-way process. And I said, okay, tell me, what does that mean? And Cass says, you got to find your own gratitude in between giving. However way that gratitude could be. It could be your own story. You don't need to share with other people if you don't want to. It could be your own moment. It could be your own learning. However way it is, you got to find some gratitude. And I look back to Southern Can and I say that I'm being there for a number of years now, and good Lord, it has given back. It has given back that perspective. It has given back that gratitude, and it has given back that, I suppose, that realism that when we say Australia is a lucky country, we understand it, but do we really understand how lucky we are?
Well, it sounds as though it's been a positive amplification of the sentiment that you have around gratification, and that's what you're taking from it. And that's fine, you know, and I think that's very sage counsel from her to actually say it can't just be one way, it's got to be two ways. But, you know, this way might be a time and financial contribution, but what you're taking back from that is giving you, and what I would say, knowing your involvement in the charity, it's probably exacerbated expanded your charitable appeal, and it's helped you think and shape your own program towards it. And we'll have a chat around the Khan Foundation in a moment, because maybe that's what you've taken out of it. It's giving you clarity.
To give you just one example is that we're expanding ourselves quite a bit into UK, and we purchased a couple of practice. We're in the middle of buying other practice. That whole inspiration came in when I was in Kenya. And when I was in Kenya, in the middle of sort of nowhere, and seeing that all the sort of, 50-odd schools, and they're all sort of running around, they're all being established, I took a step back. I said, how does it work? How does it whole corporate governance is being done by Cass sitting all the way to New Zealand, and everything works as a machine? And that's where the view came in, saying that, well, if it can be done from New Zealand all the way to Kenya and Tanzania, sitting in Australia, what's stopping us to become global? And this is where the vision sort of comes in, and then you start thinking through and you explore a bit more, and things happen, right? So what did I get out of the charity? The whole UK.
And what that's done, so you had a perspective towards expansion, which was one thing, which was probably, we can't do that. Whereas by doing and going through this process with us, So They Can, it gave you perspective, which is very, very different. So it's a very valuable thing to take away, and you can't pay for that.
No.
You can't. Typically, it's got a lived experience will help shape and determine that. And Purabi, you get involved in So They Can as well.
I mean, from the Khan Foundation point of view, we do have a collaboration with them. So they are our collab partner on the ground in Kenya for one of our projects. Okay. So yes.
Okay, and so the Khan Foundation, I guess the name's on the tin. That's you guys, is it? This is a charitable endeavour. Before we get into that, and it's important because this is very much a sense of, operating in and around the KHI business. It's given you the capacity now to be able to have a different lens through which to provide philanthropic or charitable donations, and it's more than just donations as well. I think you have a view towards, it's okay to make money as long as you're deploying it in the right way, appropriately elsewhere. You do a lot of work with Dana Asia, which you're involved with, Munzurul, and this is more of a sort of traditional view towards microfinancing. I remember we used to speak at length around this because, I've done a lot of academic stuff around development finance back in the day. Tell us about Dana Asia. Well, so where does it operate?
That's right. Dana Asia came in on the, I suppose, the spirit of Professor Yunus, right? Professor Yunus has been known as the father figure of the microfinance, and he won the Nobel Prize and Nobel Prize in Peace. Over the years, I had the privilege of meeting Professor Yunus many, many times and sort of learning various things in terms of this mentorship. And good Lord, I look into this gentleman. He's probably mid-80s now, but
I met him as well at a function here in Sydney.
That's right. That's right. All of us. And he's now, he's mid-80s, and the man with the energy and stay relevant as we speak. I mean, this gentleman speaks about ChatGPT and how it is. Someone who's sort of mid-80s and sort of getting there, right? So over the years, many things that we've taken. So Dana Asia is also removing poverty. But where it is different from So They Can is that they're all on the same, I suppose, the goal in different angles. So Dana Asia is, number one, geographically, it's in Asia as opposed to So They Can being Africa. And number two, Dana Asia looks into more vocational education. So rather than being the kids, which is So They Can, the younger kids, primary school, early days of the high school, Dana Asia is all about the entrepreneurship, all about how do we teach someone to fish, and how do we go into that creation of the things, right? And that whole concept of that microfinance and the social business are very heavy. So they're very strong in Philippines, Cambodia, Solomon Islands, some of those.
And microfinance really being the mechanism to provide someone with a very small line of credit, if you want to call it, in order to manufacture and create self-sustained businesses.
And having the corporate governance in terms of collaboration as opposed to very expensive creation of rules and regulations. So it's a group of, say, 10 people, and 10 people has got a small amount of funding, and they make each other accountable. And if one person default, then that group never gets a funding. So it sort of almost becomes their own responsibility within the group that they fund. And second rule, what they have is that it's the ladies who always gets the fund. The men never gets the fund, right?
They always give it to the females.
Because we spend a bit of money on cigarettes and a couple of wines and a few other things where the lady seems to be all nurturing and they're sort of in there. And it works.
It's a really funny, it's a really interesting concept or construct that and I remember I had a chat around the International Women's Day with Eva at Affinity
Right.
Mortgages on the Smart
Right.
Property Investment Show, and I
Yes.
sort of stumbled my way through a conversation around the underrepresentation of females in and around the property sector, and
Right.
particularly in property investment, and what more can be done. And it was clear that. And a lot of guys are going to hate me for saying this, but,
Yes.
but females are a lot more financially responsible. Largely, I'm generalising here, but traditionally and culturally here in Australia, they seem to be more financially responsible and reasonable, but therefore sometimes a bit more risk averse. Was really the conclusion. It sounds as though there's commonalities or similarities, no matter where you are in the world. That give the money to the ladies, Purabi. They'll look after it probably better. Maybe seems to work in the car now.
Oh, well, yeah. I guess I'm married to an accountant.
That's good. So how does Dana Asia raise its funds?
So Dana Asia is your standard sort of a fundraising
Okay.
practice as same as So They Can, right? It's sort of every year that you sort of raise that fund, and it's the utilization of the fund is through the microfinance.
And if anyone's interested in learning more about what you guys are doing, how they could contribute, they can just contact you guys. That's easy. Like they go, this sounds really good, these charities. That'd be nice also.
and the website, Dana Asia website, as well as So They Can website.
Okay.
Yeah.
And speaking on behalf of Cass, I'm sure she'd be happy for any further donation. They do great work. You should go and check these guys out. And the function would be coming up. There's a big annual function
That's
for So They
right, that's
Can,
right.
which
It's-
is no doubt coming up. And there seems to be a lot of property people at those things these days, which is good, contributing where they can. And for many people, there's an idea in business of when I make my money, I'll start contributing more. But it can be done the way through in many, many different ways.
I think it's
contribution,
so
time,
important.
participation is important.
I think, Phil, this particular point is just so vital, right? It's such a vital point because we hear that over and over and over again, right? We're busy. And then at a particular point of time, let's just create a bit more wealth, right? Let's have that compounding impact, and then we'll sort of contribute. I think it's so important that you contribute along the way as much as you can, right? And, all good people are busy. So it's not about being busy. It's about how do we prioritize our time and how do we find just that tiny bit of time in there to sort of contribute. Early stage, your contribution, let it be as a start, right? But it's that compounding impact.
Yeah, it's okay to start. And even if you just, contributing or participating through some of the very large NGOs out there, it might be an Oxfam or something like that.
Yeah.
That's cool. But what I found, we've been supportive of many charities for many years, but, you can't be too hard on yourself because you have the right intent
Sure.
to do it. And often you get caught up. You
Sure.
might not contribute as much as you possibly can or participate. I sit on a board, I guess, within a certain aspect of Cancer Council New South Wales, where we do big charity fundraisers and try and raise as much dough as possible. And I don't do that as well as I possibly can, but I'm sort of but people are forgiving of you if you don't actually get around to doing everything you possibly can. If you're doing something, I think it's pretty cool. We do stuff with So They Can. We do stuff with like Invictus Australia, which is supports veteran charities. Like most people are appreciative of anything you can do. Would be my view.
You do a lot in many, 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 many different ways, right? You do a lot in many, many different ways. I think it's important not to be also too hard in terms of not to see that as an obligation, right? Because if you look into the microfinance, Professor Yunus Ahmed has 7 rules on the microfinance. These are the 7 pillars, as he calls it. And number 7 on that pillar is have fun. That's
important.
what Professor Yunus says, that do all the rest of it, but you have fun. So you don't want to see that as an obligation, right? You want to sort of almost go with the flow and say, however way it is that what we'll do. And from your point of view, let's say as an example, it could be just one network that you've given this charity at a point of time, which may have an incredible sustainable impact over a period of time, right? So it's hard to quantify in many different ways how we contribute, right?
Yeah, it is. And as you go down the pathway of building wealth through property, it's nice to be able to give what you can or do what you can, or it might be your time, energy and effort. You might give, I know a lot of companies sort of provide, days for people to go out and do stuff like all this. There's many, many different ways you can slice and dice supporting charitable endeavours. But, I say this and I sit there thinking, I don't want to sound like a hypocrite because I could probably be doing a lot more than what we do. However, I think something is enough.
Absolutely.
Yeah, which is good. Now, tell me about the Khan Foundation, Purabi. This sounds big.
So we've been around about a couple of years now.
Just about 10 years.
So it's mainly Munzurul's brainchild. So he always had this aspiration. I mean, he always had this wish, rather, that he said, Purabi will work hard, we'll accumulate the wealth, and I would love to give away 50% of that wealth out to the world, a minimum. So that's something that he always had, that aspiration. About 3 years back, he just came back to me and he just said, Purabi, I think it's time now. There's never a perfect time to start, but I believe this is the right time. And being a high achiever, within a year, Khan Foundation was born, up and running, hit the ground pretty strong. We have so far been able to, hard impact. We've been able to, through our different projects, we've been able to impact over 6,000 lives.
Wow.
So our focus is mainly health and education. And we have active projects running in Kenya, in remote Baringo County in Kenya, and different parts of Asia as well, including border of Myanmar and Thailand, Bangladesh, Philippines and Cambodia. So yeah.
Yeah, with some academic grounding in and around international development, Munzurul, I'm sort of very aware of and clear of the different the mechanisms or machinations of how money flows through, into developing worlds through many different ways. And many Western governments, there's an obligation, and they actually mandate it inside of their connectivity to certain bodies to provide a certain amount of GDP into funding. A lot of that money is actually shaped or directed, typically connected with its foreign policy. For Australia, for example, we spent a lot of money in Pacific, et cetera, et cetera. But concept-wise, you have this sort of idea of capitalism in charity. Tell me about that.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of capitalism and charity, right? We look into the microfinance and we say that, well, microfinance is being fantastic, brilliant. Professor Yunus won the Nobel Prize on the basis of microfinance. Creative, enormous, incredible. Absolutely cannot say that, and they have brilliant it is. But I still sort of say, does it go all the way in there? As soon as you have that concept of social business, does that create a sense of inefficiency? Because in that world of the social business, it's been known that many of those practices, they're not supposed to be profitable. They don't get as profitable, right? It's sort of become loss-making, and if you can become break-even, you've done well because of all the social causes that you've done. Break-even financially, but all the social causes you've done. Whereas the capitalism and charity, in my mind, just whether it goes a little bit deeper, whether it goes into a different angle, whether it looks through into a different view. And the view is that, set aside all the social causes, go into the capitalism, go into an absolutely full-blown business and go as deep as you can with the business side of it in the right way, under the regulation, make as much profit as you can, but then redistribute 100% of that profit into a charity. So we're getting that 100% impact, but what we're doing is that because we're starting the capitalism in day one, is that we get this enormous efficiency. So there is no loss. So all those KPI, all those corporate governance, all those sort of goals and objectives, everything is there. It's just that 100% of that profit goes into our charity. And that's what we've done with our TKF side of it. We don't raise any funds. The funds are being raised from donation as well as so they can. And TKF is just purely reliant on the business and the associated profit with the business.
So you've got aspects of the KHI business where you choose to distribute or contribute in a percentage or whatever based on how you choose to run those. So you're using all your best smarts and under the auspices of a very talented CEO to try and make as much money as possible in those aspects of your business so you can deploy some of that profit out elsewhere.
That's right. And we have this one division within all of our group, and this division, all the profit of that division, 100% of the profit goes to the charity.
Yeah.
Now, it has got its standard cost. You've got the colleagues cost and you've got the overhead cost and all the rest, but there is no partners or shareholders cost as such. There are shareholders, but 100% of that profit goes into the charity. And the beauty of it is that this tiny little one division, that by itself, the impact of this is enormous. Everything which we've done is on the basis of this one division.
So you're able to fuel hard projects in and around some of these areas. So you mentioned there was building a school in Kenya. It's just like building a school, like, putting up walls and teachers and classrooms. And well, what else, Purabi? Where else are you channeling some of these sort of funds through the Khan Foundation?
We have got a health project currently running in the remote Homa Bay County in Kenya. So this is where we distribute women's menstrual hygiene kits to the remote communities, and also along with that comes a lot of educational awareness, because there's a lot of social taboo out there.
Yeah.
So that's a component of both health and education there. We have also helped establish a sewing center where we employ local women to sew the kits and get the kits ready to be distributed to the local schools. So that's just a snippet of a project that we have in Homa Bay. In Kenya, Kenya actually was our chest immune clinic was our very first project from TKF. So this is where we have upgraded a level 2 clinic to a level 3 fully operational clinic in a very remote chest immune as part of the Baringo County. And then as part of it, we also constructed a 10-bed capacity maternity ward. And also we have got a water tank that we have installed there. And water is a pretty scarce commodity out that way. It's a very, very dry land we're talking about. So the impact of all of this combined, and that level 3 facility has got a fully operational lab, a very well-stocked pharmacy. So that has been one of our foundation projects. In Bangladesh, we are supporting schools, Jago Foundation schools. So Jago is the local partner, the charity partner that we work with, and this is where we are sustaining over 300 plus students high school education and taking them all the way to tertiary education. In the border of Myanmar and Thailand, we actively work with the refugee community. And the refugees, the Myanmar refugees who have fled the war zones. And we have got an established facility called Cafe Lab. So it's like a vocational training center where we are teaching them hospitality skills. We've already ran about 74 sessions already. And then obviously make them more employable in the Thai market, because getting a job in the Thai market is already quite difficult for them. So, and then we've got another very important project, the Water Safety Project, where we have partnered with the Water Gift. Water Gift was founded by Dr. Martin Butson he's a Wollongong-based scientist, absolute science genius. And this is where we are going to, again, the border of Myanmar and Thailand, Philippines and Cambodia, and we are distributing safe water stickers. And again, working around the educational awareness on water safety, sanitation, and all of that. So quite a lot happening.
Yeah, and for a lot of Australians who haven't been exposed to the developing world, and I guess the economics of developing worlds, when the simplicity of turning on your tap and water comes out, for a lot of people in developing world, like the biggest cause of illness and death is water and water sanitization, and stuff like providing sanitary products to young girls. There's cultural aspects around it. Sexual health, all that sort of stuff. Like what we may consider really, never gets mentioned or discussed. Infant death, childbirthing, maternity stuff. Like, what we assume to be very, very basic stuff are big issues. They're absolutely big issues in the developing world. So, this is where a lot of, it sounds like your efforts and energies are being directed. What I would say, and it's an obvious question, sort of harking back to my earlier comments around what a great migrant story for Australia that you've been able to come out of Bangladesh and build and thrive and foster here. The obvious thing to do would be for you just to channel all your efforts back just to Bangladesh. But you've spread your focus far and wide through Africa and wider Asia, which is commendable. But why haven't you just gone up, put everything back? Like Bangladesh has its own challenges. Yeah. As well as a lot of the other developing worlds. Is there any particular reason why you've expanded so far and wide?
I guess when we visited Africa, when we visited Kenya and Tanzania, we actually got to see poverty at a dire level that almost we were in shock, honestly. Obviously, we were both born and brought up in Dhaka, Bangladesh. Bangladesh has its own poverty issues. But Bangladesh felt rich compared to what we witnessed in Africa. And we were only there just a week. And that was good enough for us to go, oh my God, like this is a whole different world. However, saying that we have got pipelines in the project with Bangladesh. So we're at the moment in talks to go into partnership with Shati Foundation, which is a sub-focus, an independent foundation from Jago, but they are kind of related. And again, they work quite extensively in the field of women's menstrual hygiene and all of that. And also, we, as the Khan Foundation, we are thinking of creating another focus, animal rehabilitation, rescue and rehabilitation, and that we will be absolutely concentrating in Bangladesh. So,
and the wider strategic plan then for the Khan Foundation. So you'll keep looking wider from outside of just the areas you're operating within now. What's the sort of overall objective?
At the moment, we are actually doing an in-depth feasibility studies looking into other parts of Africa, and then we've got another team looking into parts of Asia. So yes, we are in different parts of Asia, but we just don't want to contain ourselves. But at the same time, we don't want to go and just take a rushed decision. So this year is all about strategizing, doing the depth, like feasibility studies, speaking to local partners, community members, and all of that, and understanding what other areas geographically we would like to concentrate, where the impact would be even more, in the sense that they need us to be there. So Kenya was like almost a foundation for us, but we are looking into other areas where the need is a lot more.
Yeah, you look into places such as, say, Sudan as an example, and Zimbabwe and some of those sort of places, right? And even in Africa, when you look into some of those places and you say, oof, Kenya and Tanzania seems to be better than some of those places, right? Everything is perspective. You know, you spoke about why is it not Bangladesh, right? It's amazing because we were born in Bangladesh, coming over in Australia. I'm living like 2/3 of my life, if not more, in Australia, right? So as Australian as one. But then I sort of look back and I say that in the true world, we really are global citizen. And it's not about Australia, it's not about Bangladesh, it's about where is the need and how do we support, right? And I suppose to some extent the Africa also came in because of Southern, and I must give that credit, right? That our first project is with CAS and
right.
with the Southern in collaboration. So that gave us quite a bit of platform in terms of just that impact side.
Yeah. Oh, it's really impressive. And I still sit there and just go, you guys must be super organised and thorough, because I have a sense of the size of the property portfolio that you guys have. I'm very appreciative of the size and scale of KHI. So that and the fact that you also parents, that must be a full-time job. But being able to provide such energy and effort and such passion into philanthropic or charitable stuff, I just go, how do you find the time?
And we must say this, otherwise it's not fair, right? We've got a very strong board. Absolutely. And in our board, we have Janine, and Janine was here as the mortgage broking side of it.
Good.
We also have Brian in our board, and we've got a fantastic CEO in our board is Duncan, right? So the board gives us quite a bit of a support, number one. And number two is that we've got this wider employee giveaway program, give back program within the KHI, and that's contributing quite a bit as well.
Absolutely, yeah. We have just launched our KHI Employee Give Back program, where we give them the option to either do a salary contribution, no obligation, no judgment if they don't want to, or we also highly encourage them to get involved, donating their time and skills into our health, education, and vocational projects. And we have had fantastic expressions of interest, great numbers coming through, sending us the expression of interest, and great feedback as well that they feel very privileged to be part of this Give Back program, and almost Khan Foundation being an in-house charity for KHI Partners. So.
Yeah, I think it's great, and whether or not it's on the radar or not, or maybe I shouldn't suggest it, but I can't see any reason why you can't even expand that out to your client base, to be supportive of that.
Sure.
We do it for sure. I think it's great.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's good.
But if I can just say, of course, it's the board. It's the beautiful board that we have, the partners from KHI Partners, and of course Duncan being our CEO. But it's also it's very important. I felt my little experience over the last 2 years. It's very important to partner with the right charities on the ground, and we've been so blessed to start that with So They Can, being so out there and so established with such great repertoire in Africa. And then all the other ones, name it Watergift, Jago Foundation,
and Dana Asia.
And
in
Dana
terms of the
Asia for
cafe.
FED as well on the ground. So we've had great partners that we've been able to trust on the ground, and that is so important for sustainability.
So where are you travelling to this year as part of this endeavours? Is another trip to Africa or Asia?
I've got a trip planned in next month or two to go back to Africa in terms of this healthcare that we've done. So since the establishment, I haven't actually visited. So I've deliberately left it a bit longer. I said that I'll let this start so that all the shiny thing, day one, this sort of wears off. And I want to go back when it's a bit more mature to sort of see where the practice is. And that's what I want to do in the next couple of months.
Well, it's thanks for coming in and sharing that, Purabi and Munzurul. And it's good to get another aspect of the wider sort of KHI objective and agenda. And I think there's a very, very commendable way in which to support those who you can support. But Munzurul, what's next for us? So we've spoken around charity today. We've spoken with buyers, with accountants and financial planners and mortgage brokers. Who's next on the agenda?
Yes, so we've got Rochelle coming over, and Rochelle looks after our insurance side of it. She's an absolute...
She's done some insurance for me recently. Yeah, I was pestering her the other day around some insurance quotes. My current insurer is actually... I think they've changed underwriters, and I reckon a lot of our listeners probably use the same insurer. I won't say who it is. So, yeah, she's out helping me out. And I was trying to get some new insurance up in Brisbane. As you know, they're not doing any policies for a little while. So, So she's going to come over and chat with us.
She'll be coming over.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Right. That's really cool. That's good. Well, Purabi, thanks for coming in. It's good to see, the impact that you're making is impressive in and around the Khan Foundation. But sounds like you're really enjoying the COO role within KHI as well. So
absolutely. Thank you for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, it's really good to see you. Munzurul, thanks for your insights.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Phil.
We've spoken since interest rate cut come down. Have we? I don't think we have.
No, we haven't spoken a lot. No.
Is there any more in the cards?
Oh, that's the hard one.
Go.
And Phil always gets me on the spot. And then what do you do, right? Well, there's still a view of 2 to 3, right? But at the same time, we sort of say that election is coming in. So whether it's going to be from now till the election, and the answer is probably would be less likely, right? And after the election is that we got to wait on the inflation data. Have we done it a little bit too early in February? And I mean, I always sort of, in my mind, I said that February would happen, but not so much on the economy, but more on the politics side of it, right? Yeah. And have we done it a little bit too early? I think we just need to see a bit more data.
We've got a federal election now taking place, I want to understand, at the end of March as a result of they were going to announce the election.
That's right.
During the cyclone situation up in Brizzy. So that's been stalled. So I think that's going to be a May election from what I understand. But I'm happy to report that my lenders all passed on the 25 basis points.
Yes, they have.
Have you checked yours?
Yes, we've checked it.
Even inside of trust and stuff, they passed it all on.
They did.
Yeah, I was a bit cynical on that. I didn't know that was going to happen.
Oh, absolutely wholeheartedly. I was thinking exactly the same thing, that it would be just those older story of 0.15, 0.1 and just take that away, number one. And number two is that they always delay a bit of time, a week and a half, 2 weeks. And the amount of the money that one makes. But none of those things were done this time. It was a straight on the spot, 0.25, everything being passed away. It shows that everyone, all of those banks, they're after that market share. It shows that the confidence on the property market which is coming in, they want to absorb that market share before it runs away too much. Yeah,
that's good. It's gives you an insight into the bank's attitude towards mortgage debt, but importantly, probably retaining customers rather than losing them. It's hard to get customers, quite easy to lose them. But no doubt you can speak to a KHI mortgage broker if they've got any questions around that. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. If people want to contact Purabi or Munzurul, they're happy to have a chat about all the charitable work they're doing. But even if it's on, if you accounting wise, or those other areas we spoke about, admin at KHI Partners. You can also hello at KHI Partners. We're a lot more friendlier if you like friendly stuff. I think that also works, and reach out. So if someone contacts you, and what happens if someone goes, oh, I really like what these guys are doing, more of a holistic, because a lot of people have fragmented relationships. So I think a decision or determination would be, you might get the benefits of some I hate the word synergies of being with a firm which may be larger and more capable and more multidisciplined, if I reach out going, I'd like to speak to someone about X, how does that work?
We always invite an obligation-free meeting, and the first meeting based on the interest, what they have raised. So if it's an accounting, very often it could be me or one of my accounting partners sit down in the first meeting, absolutely an obligation-free meeting to understand where you are, what your goals and objectives are, and to see whether we can assist here. And if it's finance, if it's mortgage, if it's financial planning, we're sort of connected to that individual partner. Always an obligation-free meeting that we start with. We're very, very mindful that even though we've got all this different service, if there is any existing relationship from the client, we always sort of say maintain that existing relationship. So if you've got a fantastic mortgage broker, that's fine. We're going to work with the mortgage broker. If you've got a fantastic buyer's agents, that's fine. We're going to work it through. And someone could be coming in from the mortgage broking. If you've got a fantastic accountant, that's fine. So we're not there in terms of trying to take away the relationship. We're there to really listen to someone, what is their need, and as much as we can provide.
Okay, brilliant. That's thanks for that those insights. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. This is we're getting through this series of discussion around in the balance, and in the balance of things, I think it's a good idea to be doing this podcast. I'm learning a lot from it, and I appreciate Munzurul time and sort of making his partners accessible to us, and people like Purabi also to give greater insights into what's happening at KHI. We'll be back again next month. Until then, bye-bye.
The information featured in this podcast is general in nature and does not take into consideration your financial situation or individual needs and should not be relied upon. Before making any investment, insurance, tax, property or financial planning decision, you should consult a licensed professional who can advise whether your decision is appropriate for you. Guests appearing on this podcast may have a commercial relationship with the companies mentioned.